I stood in the living room of the house my husband had kicked me out of 6 months ago. My hand rested on the brass doorknob he once told me he'd replace, but never did. Across from me, just beyond the welcome mat I had stitched with our initials, years ago, stood Gordon, same slouched shoulders, same furrowed brow. Only this time he wasn't holding the keys. I was. "I didn't think you'd actually buy it," he said, eyes flickering between me and the door frame. Like he wasn't sure if he should be apologizing or begging. I tilted my head. "I didn't think you'd throw away 20 years for a pile of paper." But let me back up, because to understand that moment, the quiet power of standing tall in front of the man who once told me I was just a housewife, you have to understand where this all began, and why, when he held that winning lottery ticket in his shaking hands, I already knew I was about to lose everything. At first glance, we were that couple everyone thought would last forever. I was the quiet one, the baker at church functions, the woman who never quite got around to starting her dream business because family came first. He was Gordon Whitmore, high school math teacher, favorite among students, practical to a fault. He wore the same pair of glasses for a decade and claimed mayonnaise was too spicy. We weren't flashy. Our biggest splurge was a ceramic kitchen, backsplash I talked him into during a spring sale. He called it excessive. I called it a touch of joy. I used to keep a small watercolor painting on my nightstand. 2 doves, painted by his mother before she passed. She gave it to me the week we moved into the house. "A reminder," she whispered, "that love means showing up even when you don't want to." I showed up, through the lean years, through his mother's hospice, through the slow, silent erasure of myself as I folded into the role of support system instead of partner. And I would have kept showing up, if not for the day he came. Home with a ticket, a lottery ticket. He didn't even mean to buy it. He went to the gas station for milk, forgot the milk, came back with 3 scratch-offs and an energy drink. I remember wiping the counter as he scratched the ticket. "It's probably another $2 win," I joked, not even looking. Claire, I think I just won $10 million. I looked up. His hand was shaking, his lips parted in disbelief. But his eyes were what did it. There was something in them I hadn't seen in years. Not wonder, not joy, freedom from me. Before we jump in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The change didn't happen overnight. It arrived in polite little waves. First, Gordon stopped making coffee in the morning. He used to leave a steaming cup on the nightstand for me, even if we weren't speaking. Then one day, he simply didn't. Next came the silence, the long, deliberate kind, the kind that makes you question if you've spoken at all. He'd nod, during dinner, smile at the right moments, but his mind was elsewhere. I knew it. I felt it. A week after the win, he quit his job. No discussion, no warning. Just a note on the fridge written in his precise handwriting. Turned in my resignation. Time for something new. When I asked what that something new was, he smiled. Not cruelly, just distantly. "I'm figuring it out," he said, adjusting his new cufflinks, the ones I didn't recognize. There was a new cologne, too. Woodsy. Expensive. The scent lingered in the hall after he passed, foreign and heavy like a guest who overstayed. And then, the phone call. It was a Thursday. I remember because I was making meatloaf. His favorite, though he never touched it again. He thought I was out back watering the plants. I wasn't. His voice was low but giddy. The kind of giddy I hadn't heard from him since our first year. Of marriage. She has no idea," he said. Then a laugh. "It's perfect. I'm finally free." My hands clenched around the dish towel until it tore. I stood there, heart pounding, trying to decide if I should walk in and confront him. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I turned back to the stove and stirred the gravy, pretending I didn't hear the moment my marriage quietly ended. That night, he didn't come home for dinner. That weekend, I found a receipt for a luxury watch tucked in the glove box of his car. It cost more than our entire wedding. I didn't cry. Not that night. Not yet. Instead, I opened my laptop, the old one he said was a waste of space, and clicked on a folder I hadn't touched in years. Kindred Pages. My old dream. A design boutique I once planned to start. Logos, sketches, product ideas. All waiting. Like they knew I'd come back. And I did. Just not as the woman who waited, but as the woman who was about to build something while he burned everything down. I started small. At first, it was just a few late nights in the corner of the guest room after Gordon fell asleep. I'd plug in my old laptop, its hum loud enough to drown out the ache in my chest, and reteach myself everything I'd forgotten. Fonts, color palettes, product sourcing. How to price a set of handcrafted greeting cards without underselling your own worth. I created my first design at 2:13 a.m. A simple card that read, "You are not a burden. You are a force." I cried when I hit save. Within 3 weeks, I had a name again. Kindred Pages wasn't just an idea. It was real. I posted my first set of designs on a handmade craft site, thinking maybe I'd sell 1 or 2. Just enough for a little hope. They sold out in a day. Someone left a review that read, "You made something that reminded me I still matter." And that night, for the first time in months, I slept. But peace never lasts when you're living with someone who's already left in spirit. One night, Gordon came home reeking of expensive wine and smugness. He leaned against the doorway and looked at me like I was something to be dusted off a shelf. "You're glowing lately," he said with a smirk. "Must be all that free time you have while I handle everything." I stared at him for a long second, not because I didn't have a response, but because I realized he still believed I was nothing without him. That was his mistake. The next morning, I took my coffee out onto the back steps and called Marka. She was my former neighbor, a retired accountant who used to bring me zucchini bread and unsolicited advice. I always brushed her off. This time, I listened. I told her everything. About the lottery win, the silence, the new clothes, the phone call, the woman I suspected but couldn't name. Marka didn't gasp. She didn't offer pity. She laughed. "Sweetheart," she said, "men like him don't change when they win the lottery. They just stop hiding who they already were." Then she got serious. "Now, tell me, are your names still on joint accounts?" That one question flipped a switch inside me. Because no, they weren't. 3 days later, I confirmed it. Gordon had opened a new account under his name only. Transferred the winnings, bought a car, bought God knows what else. But he hadn't filed for divorce, not yet. And suddenly, I had something he didn't. Time. The thing about being underestimated is it gives you room to move, quietly, precisely. While Gordon strutted around the city in his new tailored suits and leased sports car, I met with Marka twice a week. She brought spreadsheets, legal pads, and an energy that felt like someone lighting a match in a room full of gas. "You're going to need documentation," she said, flipping through a file folder. "Proof of assets, communications. any accounts tied to your name before he wiped it. She taught me how to pull old statements, how to request records without alerting Gordon. Don't tip your hand, she warned. You've got one shot to play this smart. Every night after Lily fell asleep in her crib beside my makeshift workspace, I'd dig, my fingers shaking, my stomach turning. I'd sift through the ruins of a marriage that had become a mirage. I found things I didn't want to find. Photos of Gordon in a hotel room. Reservations made for two under a name that wasn't mine. Flights to places he'd told me were conferences. I didn't cry. I documented. And every morning I baked muffins, kissed his cheek, acted like nothing had changed. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about dignity. The turning point came when I overheard him on the phone in the backyard. He didn't see me through the kitchen window, and I didn't flinch when I heard him laugh. She's harmless, he said. Still playing Martha Stewart in the kitchen while I build a real life. She'll walk away with a pat on the back and a little thank you check. He didn't know I had already spoken to a lawyer. And not just any lawyer. Angela Tran had handled high-asset divorces for 20 years. She was sharp, surgical, and when I showed her the file Marka and I had put together, she looked at me and said, "You've got enough to make him wish he never bought that first bottle of champagne." It wasn't about the money. It was about not being erased. That night, I told Gordon I was going to visit my sister for a weekend. Packed light, kissed Lily on the forehead and left. But I wasn't heading to my sister's. I was heading into the beginning of the end. I met Angela at her office the next morning, just as the city was waking up. Coffee carts steaming, traffic murmuring like a warning. Her office overlooked the courthouse. A poetic view for the kind of work she did. She slid a folder toward me. "You ready?" I wasn't sure what ready looked like anymore, but I nodded. He'll never see it coming. Angela gave me a smile that wasn't unkind. Good. She filed the motion that afternoon, an emergency injunction to freeze all joint assets, and a formal petition for divorce. It was served the next day at exactly 10:13 a.m., hand-delivered to Gordon at the rooftop pool of his new building, where he was lounging with someone young enough to call him Sir, and mean it. He called me 6 times that afternoon. I didn't answer, but I did listen to every voicemail. By the 3rd message, the anger started to melt. By the 5th, it was panic. By the 6th, his voice cracked. He hadn't realized that half the winnings were marital property, legally mine. He also didn't know I'd already secured the right to stay in the guest house on our old property. While the divorce was finalized, the guest house, he once said, was too small and ugly for his new life. Moved in with Lily 2 days later. It was quiet there, peaceful. The kind of silence that doesn't hurt, but heals. I planted herbs in the small windowsill box. I painted the chipped shutters. At night, I worked on my own business, Kindred Pages. A curated stationery line I had shelved years ago, because Gordon once said, "Nobody writes letters anymore." But people still needed beauty. They still needed words that felt like hands reaching across the distance. Orders trickled in, then poured. A lifestyle blogger posted about us, and within days, Kindred Pages was on backorder. I packed envelopes, by hand, while Lily babbled beside me on the floor, clapping her tiny palms like applause. One night, Marka called just to say, "I saw your site. It's beautiful." And I said the most honest thing I'd said in years. So am I. The funny thing about loss is that it clears the clutter. Gordon thought he'd broken me. But all he did was peel back everything that wasn't mine, until only what truly belonged to me remained. And it was more than enough. It was late September when I saw him again. I was setting up a weekend pop-up, booth for kindred pages at the local artisan market, just folding a linen tablecloth and arranging the hand-pressed cards in neat rows, when I felt it, that chill in the back of your neck that tells you someone's watching. I turned, and there he was. Gordon. Thinner. Less tan. Hair a little grayer at the temples. He wore that same navy sport coat he once mocked me for buying on sale. Now it looked like the most expensive thing he owned. He approached slowly, like he wasn't sure I'd recognize him. I didn't say a word. He picked up a card from the display and turned it over in his hand. The one that said, "Sometimes starting over means you finally get to be the main character." He cleared his throat. "Did you write this?" I looked him square in the eye. "Every word." He nodded, then put it back down like it burned. "You're really doing it, huh?" "I am." He shifted his weight from one foot to the other. "I lost everything." "I know. I was stupid." "You were." He swallowed hard. "I'm staying at a friend's place. The condo's gone. Most of the money, too." I heard. I didn't ask how. Everyone in town had heard by now. Silence stretched between us like a frayed wire, then softer. Can I come by sometime? Just to talk?" I took a deep breath. Not out of hope, out of finality. "You know, Gordon," I said, "there was a time when I would have given anything to hear those words from you. But that version of me, she doesn't live here anymore." He nodded again, this time, slower. He knew it too. As he turned and walked away, I felt something unexpected. Nothing. Not anger. Not triumph. Just peace. That night I lit a candle in the windowsill of the guest house, the scent of lavender and cedar filling the air. I sat down at my desk, opened my journal, and wrote one sentence in pen. He left me for $10 million. Then, underneath it. But I rebuilt my life with something worth far more. Myself. And for the first time in years, I didn't just believe it. I knew it. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived in the mail. Heavy cream paper with my name written in Gordon's handwriting. No return address. Just his name at the bottom of the flap. Stared at it for a full minute before opening it. Inside was a single-page note, folded neatly. His words were careful, almost like he was afraid of saying too much. Or not enough, Mara. "I've been thinking a lot. About what I had, about what I lost, about who you were to me and how I never really saw it until it was too late. I've been living with the echo of your absence, and if that's all I have left, I live with it. But I needed to say this. You were never just anything. Not just a wife, not just a partner. And you sure as hell weren't just someone I left behind. You built something I never could, and maybe that's why I left, because I knew you could survive without me." "I see that now." G.I. folded the letter back, slid it into its envelope, and tucked it into the back of my journal. Not out of sentimentality. Not because it changed anything, but because it marked the end of a chapter. That same evening, I hosted a small workshop at the Kindred Pages studio. 7 women showed up, some young, some older, all of them carrying the quiet weight of stories they hadn't yet told. We painted, we pressed paper, we made cards, but more than anything, we shared space. A space where we didn't need to be anyone's wife or ex or afterthought. I stood by the window at the end of the night, watching the last guest walk to her car under a sky streaked with early autumn, clouds, and just before closing the lights, I whispered the words that had become my own private vow. I will never again shrink to fit into a life that was never built for me. I turned the key, locked the door of the studio, and walked home under stars that suddenly felt a little closer. Sometimes it's not about getting even. It's about rising quietly until the people who erased you can no longer reach where you've gone. Mara didn't scream. She didn't beg. She rebuilt. And that, my friend, is the kind of revenge that lasts longer than applause. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever been replaced by someone who thought you were easy to forget? Tell me in the comments. Type 10. If you think Mara handled it with grace. Type 0 if you'd have done it differently. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs a reminder. Peace is better than revenge. But rebuilding in silence, that's the loudest victory.